My parents didn't bring dessert to dinner that night. They brought contracts. Dad slid a thick folder across the table with the kind of smile people wear when they think they've already won. "We've decided your brother should start managing part of the business," he said casually. "He'll receive 25% of the profits. It's only fair." Across from him, my brother leaned back in his chair, grinning like the office keys were already in his pocket. Mom stayed quiet, sipping wine slowly while watching me carefully, waiting for the explosion they expected. But I didn't explode. I smiled. "My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 29 years old, and if you think this story ends with me surrendering the company I built from the ground up, stay with me. Because the people who tried to outsmart me forgot one important thing. I learned strategy from them." The papers still smelled freshly printed when I opened the folder. Paragraph after paragraph laid out their plan neatly. My father had clearly rehearsed this conversation. My brother already looked victorious. Dad tapped the page impatiently. "It's simple," he said. "You sign tonight, and starting next quarter, your brother will oversee operations with you." Oversee. Interesting choice of word for someone who had never stayed at the office past noon. I flipped another page slowly while memories rolled through my head. The late nights, the unpaid invoices I fixed, the debt collectors I negotiated with after Dad nearly buried the company years earlier. The weekends I spent rebuilding client trust while my brother vacationed and called himself Future Management. I built that business brick by brick while everyone else treated it like a family inheritance waiting to be claimed. And now they wanted to hand part of it to him like a birthday gift. I closed the folder gently, then I reached into my briefcase and placed my own set of documents on the table. Dad frowned immediately. "What's that?" "The agreement you signed when I took over the company 5 years ago," I replied calmly. I flipped directly to a highlighted section. Clause 4.3. Dad's expression changed before he even finished reading it. Because Clause 4.3 was very clear, any attempt to reassign operational control without my written approval would immediately void all family profit-sharing rights connected to the company, the clause Dad himself insisted on years earlier. Back then, he believed it would protect the business from outsiders. He never imagined it would protect me from him. My brother's grin disappeared first. "What does that even mean?" he snapped. "It means," I said softly, "that by trying to force ownership changes without my consent, you just terminated your own financial stake." Silence. Real silence. The kind that drains warmth from a room. Mom leaned forward quickly. "Rachel, don't twist things," she said sharply. "This is still a family business." I looked directly at her. "No," I answered calmly. "It became my business the moment I saved it." Dad's face had gone pale. "You wouldn't actually enforce that clause against your own family." I almost laughed at the irony. The same people trying to corner me at dinner were suddenly shocked I knew how to defend myself. "You brought legal documents to manipulate me into surrendering part of my company," I said. "And now you're asking me to prioritize family?" My brother slammed his hand against the table. "You're acting selfish." There it was. The word families love using when boundaries finally appear. I folded my hands together and stayed calm. "Selfish would have been letting the company collapse years ago," I replied. "Selfish would have been walking away from your debts instead of fixing them." Dad looked down immediately because he knew every overdue account I quietly repaired, every payroll crisis I handled, every loan I refinanced to keep employees working. He knew exactly who built the company back into something valuable, and deep down, so did everyone else at that table. Mom tried another approach. "Your brother has connections," she said carefully. "He can help expand things." I tilted my head. "Then why hasn't he built anything himself?" That shut the room down again. My brother's jaw tightened. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I answered honestly. "I just finally stopped believing I'm less." For years, I had confused loyalty with obedience. I thought earning respect meant sacrificing more, working harder, staying quieter, but no amount of sacrifice changes people who benefit from your silence. Dad pushed the contract aside aggressively. If investors hear about this, he warned, you'll embarrass the entire family. I reached for my phone calmly and unlocked it. Then I placed it on the table between us. An unsent email glowed on the screen. Attached were years of financial records, proof of debts I paid, transfers I covered personally, emergency expenses hidden from investors, everything, every receipt, every bailout. Every moment I quietly carried the company while they publicly took credit. Dad stared at the screen like it was a loaded weapon. "You prepared this?" he whispered. "Weeks ago," I replied, because part of me always knew this moment would come. When people spend years treating you like support staff in your own life, eventually they push too far. Mom's voice cracked slightly. "Rachel, please. Families fight. Don't destroy us over one disagreement." I looked at her for a long moment. "This wasn't a disagreement," I said quietly. "This was an ambush." My brother scoffed loudly, trying to recover confidence. "People still respect Dad more than you." I smiled faintly. "Then why do all the clients call me directly now?" That hit harder than shouting ever could. Dad's shoulders sank just slightly. For the first time in my life, I saw him realizing he no longer controlled the room. "What do you want?" he finally asked. That question lingered in the air, because for years I thought I wanted their approval, their validation, their acknowledgement. But sitting there watching them panic over losing access to what I built, I realized something important. I didn't need their permission anymore. I leaned forward slowly. "What I want," I said carefully, "is for you to understand that I am not the family safety net anymore." Nobody interrupted, so I continued. "No more expecting me to clean up financial messes quietly. No more treating my success like community property. No more pretending my work belongs to whoever you decide deserves it." My brother muttered bitterly, "You can't cut us out." I looked at him steadily. I already did. The truth landed heavily because they knew I meant it. They walked into dinner believing I would panic. Instead, I showed them something far more dangerous: preparation. I stood, closed my briefcase, and slipped my phone back into my bag. "Clause 4.3 protects the company," I said. "Now I'm finally protecting myself." Then I walked out. The fallout came quickly. Within days, relatives started asking questions. Apparently, Dad tried bragging about the company during brunch with extended family, only to realize every major contract carried my signature alone. Investors began reaching out directly to me. One email stood out most. "Glad to hear the company is fully under your leadership now. Looking forward to future growth." I read it twice, not because it surprised me, because it confirmed what I had spent years trying to prove. I was never the assistant to someone else's legacy. I was the reason the legacy survived. At the office, the atmosphere shifted too. Employees who once nervously deferred to my father started speaking to me with genuine confidence. They trusted me, not because of my last name, because they had watched me lead, and leadership built through effort will always outlast leadership inherited through ego. A few weeks later, Dad appeared at the office unexpectedly. He looked tired, older somehow. "We need to talk privately," he said. I stayed seated behind my desk. "Anything you need to say can be said here." My staff quietly pretended to work while listening carefully. Dad lowered his voice. "You've made me look weak." I met his eyes calmly. "No," I answered. "You made yourself look entitled." His jaw tightened. "Everyone thinks I lost control of my own daughter." That sentence told me everything. Control. That was always the issue, not the business, not the contracts. Control. I leaned back in my chair. You never lost control of me, I said softly. You just lost the ability to intimidate me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then his shoulders dropped, not dramatically, just enough to reveal exhaustion. We need you, he admitted quietly. And there it was, the truth beneath all the manipulation. Not love, dependence. I stood slowly. You don't need me, I replied. You need what I built. He didn't argue, because he couldn't. After he left, one of my employees looked at me and smiled. You handled that with class. That compliment meant more to me than any praise my family had ever given, because it was earned honestly. By spring, everything had changed. Investors trusted me directly. The company expanded faster than ever. My brother's fantasy of executive power disappeared quietly once people realized he had never actually contributed to the business. And me? I stopped chasing acceptance from people who only valued me when I was useful. At Easter dinner, my grandmother pulled me aside. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what you built, she whispered. I smiled and squeezed her hand gently, because guilt had controlled me for years. But peace? Peace arrived the moment I stopped apologizing for my boundaries. A month later, I hosted my own investor event downtown. Beautiful venue, strong contracts, confident conversations, everything under my leadership. As the evening ended, my phone buzzed with a message from Dad. Clause 4.3, you outsmarted me. Maybe you were always meant to lead. I read it once, then locked my phone without replying, not out of anger, out of closure. Because the greatest victory wasn't humiliating them. It wasn't winning the argument. It was realizing I no longer needed their approval to believe in my own worth. They thought contracts could control me. Instead, those same contracts became proof that I was capable of protecting everything they underestimated, including myself.